Greetings everyone, thank you for coming to my channel. In this video, you'll be learning about compound complex sentences. Before I get started, I just wanted to thank you guys for all of your love and support. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for liking my videos. Thank you for sharing my videos. And thank you for just being supportive overall. I remember when I used to upload videos and I would get 0 views, and now my videos are getting consistent views, and I really appreciate that. It's not about the views to me, it's about providing value, especially because I see that a lot of you guys are sharing my videos as well. And I'm like, wow, people are sharing my videos. That's so nice. Like, people are actually learning from these videos or finding value in these videos. So that means a lot to me. So thank you guys. Also, don't forget, you're always welcome to leave feedback. Are you enjoying these videos? Is there something that I can improve on? Feel free to let me know. Also, how are you guys doing? What are you thankful for today? Me, I'm thankful for guacamole and sour cream. I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. By the way, I'm thankful for food every day, but as of lately, oh my gosh, I've been obsessed with guacamole. And I didn't used to like guacamole before. Like, to me, it didn't taste like anything and it was kind of just there. But now when I put it on my nachos, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the little touch that I needed. Like, the taste isn't strong, but I like it that way. I think it's because they say our taste buds change every 7 years. I don't know. Because some things I didn't used to like, I like them now. But it took years for me to start liking them. I remember when I was obsessed with those salt and vinegar chips, and I ate them so much. And then one day, when I was like 21, I was eating them, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are gross. And that would make sense, because if your taste buds change every 7 years, then they would change when you're 21. But I don't think that's set in stone. I'm just talking. But yeah, let me know how you guys are doing and what you're thankful for. In the meantime, let's get to the video. Compound complex sentences are created with one or more independent clauses, also known as complete thoughts, and one or more dependent clauses, also known as incomplete thoughts. An independent clause is created with a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. So our first example says, my shoes are red. Our subject is shoes, and our verb is are, and this is a complete thought. Our second example says, I ate eggs for breakfast. Our subject is I, and our verb is ate, and notice how this is a complete thought. Our last example says, I work at the mall. Our subject is I, and our verb is work, and notice how this is a complete thought. A dependent clause can have a subject and a verb, but it isn't a complete thought. So our first example says, when the time is right. So notice how there's a subject, time, and a verb is, but it's not a complete thought. Our second example says, because of your attitude. So this dependent clause doesn't have a subject or a verb, and it isn't a complete thought. And our third and final example says, although we're no longer friends. So there is a subject and a verb. So the subject is we, and the verb is are. But notice how this isn't a complete thought. Also, dependent clauses often start with subordinating conjunctions. Subordinating conjunctions are used to connect incomplete thoughts, dependent clauses, to complete thoughts, independent clauses. And I also have a detailed video on subordinating conjunctions, so feel free to check that video out. So all of these examples, well, these 3 examples are dependent clauses, and they start with a subordinating conjunction, but in the real world, they would be connected to an independent clause. So let's take our first example, when the incident happened. In real life, it would actually say something like, when the incident happened, I was at school. Like our second example says, after I brushed my teeth. In the real world, it would say something like, after I brushed my teeth, I went to bed. And then our last example, which says, until you clean your room. In the real world, it would say something like, until you clean your room, you're on punishment. Okay, now let's check out some compound complex sentences. So our first example says, we're not going to call the police, although we caught you stealing, but we're banning you from our establishment. So first we have an independent clause, which says we're not going to call the police. Then we have a dependent clause, which says, although we caught you stealing. And then we have another independent clause that is connected by a coordinating conjunction, but, and that independent clause says we're banning you from our establishment. So we have two independent clauses and one dependent clause. Our next example says someone broke into your house while you were at work, but she didn't steal anything. So first we have an independent clause, which says someone broke into your house. Then we have a dependent clause, which says while you were at work. And then we have another independent clause that says she didn't steal anything. And it's connected to the other part of the sentence with the coordinating conjunction, but. Our third and final example says, I can no longer play football because my leg is broken, but I can start playing again when my leg heals completely. So we have an independent clause, which says, I can no longer play football. Then we have a dependent clause, which says, because my leg is broken. And then we have another independent clause, which says, I can start playing again. And then lastly, we have a dependent clause, which says, when my leg heals completely. So we have two independent clauses and two dependent clauses. So in this slide, I'll be using the same examples from the two previous slides, but in these examples, the dependent clause will come first. And when I was doing this video outline, for some reason, it was so much easier to write the examples where the dependent clause comes first. Like when I was writing the examples where the independent clause comes first, my head was spinning. And remember, when the dependent clause comes first, you always have to place a comma after the dependent clause. So our first example says, although we caught you stealing, comma, we're not going to call the police, but we're banning you from our establishment. So first we have the dependent clause, which is although we caught you stealing. Then we have the independent clause, which is we're not going to call the police. And then we have another independent clause that says we're banning you from our establishment. Our next example says, while you were at work, someone broke into your house, but she didn't steal anything. So while you were at work is a dependent clause. Someone broke into your house is an independent clause. But she didn't steal anything, or I would say she didn't steal anything, is also an independent clause. And these sentences are joined by the coordinating conjunction but. Our third and final example says, because my leg is broken, I can no longer play football, but I can start playing again when my leg heals completely. So because my leg is broken is a dependent clause. I can no longer play football is an independent clause. I can start playing again is also an independent clause. And when my leg heals completely is a dependent clause. That concludes our video. Thank you guys for coming. I hope you found this video informative. If you did find this video informative, please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe, or all of the above, and I'll see you next time.